Yesterday, something happened in New York that nobody thought was possible. Zohran Mamdani didn't just win an election, he ignited a movement. And within hours, Donald Trump sent 4 words that stopped everyone cold. And so it begins. Because what's happening in New York isn't just politics, it's a turning point. A clash between two visions for America, one built on freedom, and the other built on control. And only one can survive. Zohran Mamdani, the soft-spoken democratic socialist who campaigned on helping working families, stepped on stage and took off the mask. What was expected to be a victory speech turned into a declaration of war against capitalism itself. He didn't talk about unity, or reform, or policy. He talked about destruction, the destruction of the system that made New York the financial capital of the world. He told his supporters that the system allowing people like Donald Trump to gain wealth and power needed to be dismantled. Not tweaked. Not fixed. Destroyed. And the crowd went wild. They cheered for a new age, one where government controls everything, private property is suspect, and success is seen as injustice. To them, it wasn't a revolution, it was redemption. But to those who understand history, it was a warning. Because we've seen this story before. Every time a government promises equality by taking control, it ends the same way: shortages, collapse, and despair. From Venezuela to the Soviet Union, socialism starts as a dream and ends as a disaster. And now, New York, the city built on ambition and enterprise, is flirting with that same fate. Trump saw it immediately. His warning wasn't just political, it was constitutional. Because when a mayor openly declares he'll ignore federal immigration law, he's not challenging Trump, he's challenging the very structure of the United States. If one city can decide which laws it follows, what stops another from refusing to pay federal taxes? What stops another from rejecting court rulings? That's not democracy. That's chaos. But to understand why people are following Zohran, you have to understand their pain. For millions of young Americans, the dream feels dead. Owning a home before 40? Out of reach. Paying off student loans? Impossible. Starting a business? Too risky. They've been told to play by the rules and watched others bend them. They're angry. They're tired. And they're desperate for someone to blame. So when a smooth-talking socialist stands up and says, "It's not your fault, the system is rigged against you," they listen. Because he's not selling socialism. He's selling revenge. But here's the truth, Zohran won't tell them. The problem isn't capitalism, it's crony capitalism. It's not free markets that failed. It's the government's marriage with corporations, where lobbyists write laws, big banks get bailouts, and small businesses get crushed. That's not capitalism. That's corruption. And socialism doesn't solve corruption, it replaces it. Instead of corporations bribing politicians, politicians become the corporations. Instead of free competition, you get bureaucrats deciding who gets resources, licenses, and opportunities. It's not equality, it's control. You can vote out a CEO. You can't vote out a system. And behind Zohran's movement lies serious money. Within minutes of his victory, Alex Soros posted a smiling photo with him, calling it a dream come true. Now think about that: billionaires cheering a socialist win. Do you really believe they're excited to give away their wealth? Of course not. They don't want to lose control, they want to centralize it. If the government controls everything, the people who control the government control everything. That's not compassion. That's strategy. Meanwhile, Trump is fighting his own war in the Supreme Court. He's battling for executive authority to reshape trade, rebuild industry, and make America less dependent on China. The establishment says he's overreaching, but in reality he's trying to restore something America lost decades ago: self-reliance. Both Trump and Zohran are testing power, but for completely different purposes. One to rebuild America's independence. the other to dismantle it from within. And the danger is Zohran might actually succeed. Because when you raise taxes on the wealthy and overregulate businesses, they don't fight, they leave. The rich have jets. The middle class doesn't. And when they go, so does the tax base that funds everything else. Then comes the decay. Crime rises, jobs vanish, and the same people who cheered for government power realize the government can't save them. We've seen this before. In the 1970 seconds, New York City nearly went bankrupt. Trash piled on the sidewalks, crime exploded, and the city begged Washington for help. It took decades to recover. Now, history is circling back, and most people don't even see it. Zohran's real genius isn't his policy. It's his identity play. He didn't just run as a socialist, he ran as an immigrant leading immigrants. He called New York a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and now led by an immigrant. It sounded noble, but he never said Americans. That's not inclusion, that's erasure. When a nation forgets its shared identity and becomes a collection of tribes, it fractures. People stop seeing each other as neighbors and start seeing each other as rivals. You don't get unity, you get chaos. And that's exactly what happens when leaders trade citizenship for tribalism. America became the most successful country in the world, not by dividing people, but by uniting them under shared values, freedom, hard work, responsibility, and opportunity. Those weren't just slogans. They were the foundation of prosperity. You can't replace them without replacing everything they built. And that's the core of this fight. It's not about left or right, red or blue. It's about freedom versus control. Do we still believe individuals can build their own future? Or are we ready to hand that power to politicians who promise safety in exchange for obedience? Zohran's model sounds compassionate. Free healthcare, free housing, guaranteed jobs. But there's a hidden cost. Freedom. Because when the government gives you everything, it can take away anything. When it feeds you, it owns you. And once that dependency starts, it never stops. History proves it. Socialism always begins with promises and ends with force. At first, it redistributes wealth. Then, it redistributes freedom. And by the time people realize what's happening, it's too late to take it back. That's why Trump's 4 words "and so it begins" matter. Because he knows this isn't just about New York. It's about the soul of the nation. If Zohran's experiment works, it spreads. If it fails, maybe America wakes up before it's too late. This is the test. Will the city that once symbolized freedom choose control instead? Will the people who built it on ambition now surrender it for comfort? And if New York falls, who's next? The truth is, freedom doesn't disappear in one moment. It erodes quietly, vote by vote, promise by promise, crisis by crisis, until one day you realize it's gone. That's how empires end. Not with revolution, but with surrender. So as the world watches New York's experiment unfold, remember this. You can't build prosperity by punishing success. You can't create equality by destroying opportunity. And you can't secure freedom by giving it away. This isn't just a local election. It's a mirror reflecting where America stands and where it's heading. Because if freedom falls in the city that once symbolized it, the ripple won't stop at the Hudson. It'll spread across the entire nation. This isn't just politics. It's the future of America. And the question now isn't whether Zohran wins or Trump wins. It's whether freedom wins or fades. If you believe in freedom, in building, creating, and choosing your own path, share this video. Because the fight for liberty isn't happening somewhere else. It's happening here, right now. And it's just beginning. But here's the truth most people won't face. The battle for freedom doesn't end with elections. It doesn't end with a speech or a slogan. It lives or dies in the everyday choices of ordinary people. Because what's happening in New York right now isn't just about Zohran Mamdani. It's a reflection of a deeper shift, a change in mindset, For decades, Americans believed that success came from work, risk, and perseverance. Now, more and more people believe success should come from government permission, and that shift, that quiet surrender, is how liberty disappears. When you convince an entire generation that they're victims instead of creators, when you teach them that their struggles are someone else's fault, you don't empower them, you trap them. Because the moment you depend on someone else to save you, you've already given up your freedom. That's the real danger of Zohran's vision. Not that he'll destroy capitalism overnight, but that he'll convince millions of people to stop believing in themselves. Once you replace self-reliance with dependency, you can control anyone with promises and silence anyone with fear. And make no mistake, that's how it starts. They tell you they're protecting you. They say they'll make things fair. They promise you safety, comfort, equality. But what they're really building is control. Because when everything is free, you stop asking what it costs. And what it costs is freedom. Look at every society that's tried it. In the beginning, it feels like progress. Free education, free housing, free food. Then, slowly, the shortages begin. Then the censorship. Then the surveillance. And when people finally speak out, they realize it's too late. That's not paranoia. That's the pattern. And if you think it can't happen here, you're exactly who they're counting on. But here's the good news. America still has a choice. Freedom isn't gone, it's just sleeping. It's waiting for people who still believe in it to wake up and stand up. Because the truth is, most Americans, regardless of party, don't want control. They want opportunity. They don't want government handouts. They want a fair shot to build something real. That's what built this country in the first place. You see, America was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be free. A place where failure is possible, and that's exactly what makes success meaningful. Zohran wants a world where nobody fails. But a world without failure is a world without progress. Without struggle, there's no innovation. Without risk, there's no reward. And without freedom, there's no America. That's the paradox of this entire movement. They promise equality, but what they deliver is mediocrity. They promise fairness, but only for those who agree with them. And they promise unity by dividing people into categories, races, and identities. It's not inclusion, it's fragmentation. It's not progress, it's regression. And every time a city like New York falls for it, it sets a dangerous precedent for the rest of the country. Because the moment people stop defending freedom in one place, the system learns how easy it is to take it everywhere. That's why Trump's words hit so hard. And so it begins. He wasn't talking about a mayor. He was talking about a movement. A movement that starts small and grows fast when good people stay silent. So here's what has to happen next. People have to stop apologizing for believing in freedom. Stop feeling guilty for being successful. Stop being afraid to speak truth because someone might label you. Because the truth is silence is compliance. And the people pushing this new ideology thrive on your silence. The future of this country doesn't depend on politicians. It depends on how many of us are willing to say, no, we will not trade liberty for promises. The media won't tell this story. Big tech will try to bury it. But truth always finds a way, if people are brave enough to speak it. So if you've made it this far, understand this. You are part of that fight. Because every view, every share, every conversation, it matters. That's how movements begin, and that's how they win. This isn't about left versus right. It's about preserving something far more valuable, the right to live free. So watch what happens next in New York. Watch how fast promises fade when reality sets in. Watch what happens when the people who built that city start leaving. And then ask yourself, Is this really progress? Because the day you can't question authority without fear, that's the day you're no longer free. And if there's one lesson history has taught us, it's this. Freedom doesn't vanish overnight. It fades quietly when people stop defending it. So, don't stop. Don't tune out. Don't give in. America has faced darker moments than this, and every single time, the people who believed in freedom pulled it back from the edge. Maybe it's our turn now. If you still believe that individuals, not governments, shape destiny, if you still believe that hard work should mean something, if you still believe that freedom is worth more than fear, then remember this moment. Because what happens in New York won't end in New York. It's the test of whether America still remembers who it is. And maybe, just maybe, this time, we'll remember before it's too late.